In December 2004, I delivered my shop talk at UB, after which I was invited to lunch. When asked if I had a preference for food, I responded instead with a preference for a restaurant, Faisal Restaurant, a place I had read about where some Palestinian factions and Lebanese national movement once took root. One faculty member misunderstood me and assumed I was referring to Faisal Snack, remarking that there were no table there for us to sit. It was only Nabil Dajani who grasped my reference to this iconic place. With a knowing sigh, he replied, "Alas, it is not only closed, but has been replaced by McDonald's." For me, Nabil was more than a repository of memories. He was a living archive of EUB, and indeed of Lebanon itself. Whenever discussions arose about university regulations and policies, the final word in the meetings often came from him. I used to call them Nabil's rules, echoing Robert's rules of order. Even beyond the campus, when I mentioned that I taught sociology at UB, people invariably recalled Nabil Dajani alongside Samir Khalaf and late Richard Smith. Together, they had placed our department firmly on the local, regional, and international academic map. During my first 2 years at UB, I occupied a modest 6 square meters office in Joseph Hall. Yet, I never complained because it was next door of Nabil's office. Nabil, do you remember our morning conversations, which become a cherished ritual discussing a range of topics from your outstanding expertise on media, your great book, Disoriented Media in a Fragmented Society, the Lebanese Experience, to everyday life? We didn't always see eye to eye on political matters, particularly regarding the Syrian revolution, but our debates were always softened by your kindness, collegiality, and friendship. Even after I moved to the different office farther away, I maintained the habit of stopping by your office first to greet you right up until your last day at UB. You were my mentor, my guide through the labyrinth of the American university system. Coming from a national university, Damascus University, and the French academic tradition, I faced a steep learning curve. But you, Nabil, you always there, patiently and generously explaining its nuances. You worried that I might struggle with an increasing commodified and standardized American academic system. When I send you a message from Toronto, where I attended the World Congress of Sociology, informing you that I was elected as a president of the International Sociological Associations, I still remember your message. You affectionately called me unguided missile. And you were afraid that this would be at the expense of my research production. Nabil, I miss you deeply. Though we no longer see you on campus every day, I will always find my way to your home. Your presence still lingers in every conversation and every memory. I will not take much longer with my introduction, as we have a rich program ahead. It is my honor to first invite the 16th AUB President, Fadlo Khuri, followed by Blake Atwood, the chair of our department, Sociology, Anthropology, and Media Studies, and then Farah. So I will tell all them, and they will come one after the other. Farah, the chair of Media Study Program, Imad Baalbaky, Senior Vice President of Advancement and Business Development, he, as a friend of Nabil, but Maysaa Kobrosly, who is wonderfully and efficiently administrative officer of our department. And then we will have Munir Bashshur, who kindly will discuss the memoir of Nabil Dajani. This is in English or in Arabic, before I forgot, my life and involvement with concern of the American University of Beirut. Unfortunately, Ricardo Karam kept 3 hours in the airport of New York, and he not yet reached his hotel, so he will not be with us. So, and Nabil will have the concluding remarks, and then we will have an open session. If anyone has any thought, bad thought or good thought about Nabil, you are most welcome. Thank you.
Yep. Well, I'm just got back from the U.S., and if Ricardo's stuck in an airport these days in America, it could be 3 weeks, not just 3 hours. So, interesting times. So, this is Nabil's CV. This is my speech. I'm going to look at neither one because I've known Nabil a very long time. So I'm going to speak extemporaneously, as I suspect Nabil expects. Nabil is someone who came here in the early 1950s when he was minus 13 years old and never left, really. He's known every AUB president since Penrose. The difference that Nabil Dajani can say when compared with others is that he's actually known most of us very well, maybe more than some of us would like. And of course, being Nabil Dajani, he has an opinion on everyone, and he'll be damned if you can correct him from that opinion. Evidence doesn't matter. But in all seriousness, when I think of Nabil and Huda and their family, I think of someone who is not about a CV or a speech, but is about people. Shortly after I publicly accepted this position, but before I assumed it, he and I were in touch. I made 2 quick calls to Makhlouf Haddadin and to Nabil Dajani. Makhlouf agreed to be acting president for the 2-month gap between Peter Dorman and I. I talked to Nabil, who said, look, you like people, you like the faculty. Come meet the faculty, I insist, at my home. I said, if I start by showing the faculty that I love the faculty, we have a big problem. There goes our negotiating leverage. But if you've ever tried to negotiate with Nabil, you know where that's going. So yes, I came to his home and he invited the Faculty United board, and we had an interesting discussion. Mostly I listened. And with Nabil, if you know Nabil, mostly you listen. Shortly after I started, I formed a small group of 3 people before I technically was in to advise me unofficially. Nuhad Daghir, Hudazre, Nabil Dajani. They suggested an interim provost, which I accepted, and we appointed Muhammad Harajli. And they had many good ideas, some of which I incorporated and others which I didn't, but we had some fun, and over time, that group convened less and less. And then some things never change. The Palestinian people continue to be oppressed. The Lebanese state continues to be dysfunctional. Syria has not been peaceful since the mid-1950s. And all of these things are topics where we wind up spending more time talking about than we did about AUB. So I thought, this has become a social group, so let's leave it for that. Meanwhile, the university endures. And the university endures, I would argue, Yes, because of CVs. Yes, because of a very important practice which I feel AUB had been, frankly, lacking in, which is recognition of people who have given their lives to AUB. This was probably one of the first ideas that I actually had for the group that they liked, which was in the second opening day ceremonies, we would bring all the faculty still serving up on the stage who'd worked and stayed with AUB through the war. And instead of saying what a previous AUB president had said, which is the reason you didn't leave is because you had no opportunity, is to thank them individually and give them a citation. And I think this was an idea that for once we got buy-in from the three wise faculty members. Even Makhlouf agreed to go on stage, God rest his soul, and accept to be acknowledged. So an institution endures because of people, because of the memory that is transmitted. And what Nabil has been for me more than anything is a wonderful oral historian of AUB. And I've long asked him to commit those memories, not to a book, not knocking the book is fun, but to tapes. And we've pushed this on some of our senior faculty, some of whom I was not successful in convincing. The great Brahim Salti was reluctant to commit his memories to a tape, as far as I could tell. Others have taken us up, so I want to take this opportunity to again plug that you put your memories to an oral history and donate them to the AUB archives. Why is that important? Well, it's important for a reason that you should recognize more than almost anyone here. People disappear when their memory disappears. Their land can disappear, but as long as the memory persists, as has been the case, not just for the Palestinians, for the Armenians, for so many people, the people persist. So it's very important to hang on to that oral memory. And that oral memory, whether it's committed to a tape or a person, is passed down from generation to generation. Among the many interesting discussions we've had over the years is there a unifying AUB culture, or does it change or transform over generations? And my position has long been that there is a modifiable but real thread that runs all the way from the first great failure of the Presbyterian missionaries in 1882, when they recognized that they were being extremely stringent and hardline in trying to insist that the topic of evolution could not be discussed, all the way through today. The institution has made mistakes, but there is a culture of shared accountability, shared responsibility, and of empowerment that even the youngest and newest student feels when they spend some time on this campus. And that's the AUB culture for me. It is a memory of people who, no matter their plights or the plights of their people, still feel a sense of accountability and empowerment and a shared bond with other human beings. So when I think of Nabil, I think of someone who has these intensive relationships with people across the generations. People in his generation, our generation, next generation, generation before that, relationship with people 60 years younger than him and more. You're going to hear a little bit about that now, but what's most enduring about those relationships is that they're sincere relationships. They're relationships that weren't built for gain. Like all of us, Nabil can be annoying, but you're always getting the true unfiltered Nabil. You're not getting someone who is, in the terrible phrase that, we the Arabs, we are the masters of al-hijab, wusuli. Nabil man wusuli. Nabil is himself. He is telling you his opinion, whether you want to hear it or not, whether it's on a plane or on the phone or in an evening or via an email. And I've always really appreciated that tremendous quality, your genuine care for others, your belief that everyone's opinion matters, even if yours is right and theirs is wrong, and your unyielding conviction that if we interfere with the telling of people's stories, be they factual or their own stories, should we muzzle the press or the students or the people, then we are damaging something very sacred at AUB and for our community. So I want to say today, in the presence of your family, of Huda, your children, all of the young lions who are seated in the first few rows, female and male, Mabruk, you have shared your life with us. We are all better for it. You have a good ways to go, so don't get any bad ideas. I'm glad you're exercising more and listening to Tariq and a little bit more, but we've had a lot of fun. There's more to go, and thank you for everything you've done for AUB, for me, and for our community.
Good afternoon. It's so nice to see such a full house here today. And it's a real privilege for me to take part in today's tribute to Professor Nabil Dajani, someone whose career has left a lasting mark on this university, on the field of media studies, and on all of us who came after him. So I didn't know Professor Dajani during the heyday of his long and distinguished career at AUB. By the time I joined the department, he was nearing retirement. But as anyone who works at a university knows, there are some people whose presence lingers in conversations, in policies, in institutional memory, and occasionally in office furniture. I say this with great affection. I inherited Professor Dajani's office, and in many ways I've come to think of this as more than just a change of address. It's a small reminder every day that I'm here because someone like him made it possible. So Professor Dajani helped to establish media studies as a serious field of inquiry at AUB long before it was fashionable and long before it was clear how essential it would become. And he did so not just through rigorous research and teaching, but also through the mundane, patient, and unglamorous work of institution building. He was a faculty advocate, a Senate leader, a bridge between generations, and a sharp observer of the dynamic and evolving relationship between AUB and the region it serves. The book we are honoring here today, before I forget, is not quite a memoir, at least not in the traditional sense. It's more like a constellation of reflections, part record, part reckoning, part memory work. It gives us glimpses of a university in flux, filtered through the eyes of someone who knew its inner workings better than most. It's also a document of care. You can feel it in the attention to detail, in the preservation of email exchanges, in the effort to name names and remember moments before they fade into abstraction. And to me, the book also models the kind of intellectual generosity that Professor Dajani represents. It opens conversations without trying to close them. It stakes out positions, but invites others to disagree. And it reminds us that telling the story of an institution is always, at least in part, telling the story of oneself. As a Palestinian who made a life and a home at AUB, as a student turned scholar turned administrator, Professor Dajani's trajectory captures something essential about the university's promise and also its contradictions. His reflections stretch across decades and presidencies, across wars and curricular changes and governance battles, and yet, through it all, there is a persistent belief that AUB matters, that it can be better, and that it's worth documenting, the good and the bad. I know I speak not just for myself, but for many others in the department and beyond, when I say that we are grateful for this belief. Grateful, too, for the path that he created and questions that he insisted we keep asking. So thank you, Professor Dajani, for the office and for the legacy.
Oh, wow, there's a lot of you back there. My name is Farah, and I have known Nabil for over 30 years. But before I get into that, I just want to thank Sari for putting this occasion together. It's long overdue, and to recognizing Nabil, not just in terms of his medley and his memoirs, but his legacy and his time here at AUB. So I'm thrilled to be here and to speak about one of my favorite people at AUB. To me, Nabil, you're still at AUB. Every time I walk down the halls, I go into Blake's office, there's a part of you that's there. Indeed, I don't know an AUB without Nabil. He was here when I first moved to Lebanon in the years just after the Civil War to start my MA at AUB. He was my professor, he was my advisor, he was my thesis chair. And then I became a part-time instructor here because he offered me an opportunity to teach, which then encouraged me to go on to do my PhD. And then I went to do my PhD, and then when I was hired here, it was Nabil who, as well, was part of the committee that hired me. So for the past 30 plus years, I have known Nabil as a professor, as a mentor, as an advisor, as a supervisor, as a boss, as a colleague, and most of all, as a dear friend. For me, like so many people in families, and I say families because Nabil has taught daughters, mothers, fathers, and if I'm not mistaken, a few granddaughters, right, Nabil? So Nabil is our little corner of AUB. And even as far away as Canada, where I spend a lot of time, I will run into people who, when they ask me where I teach and I say media studies at AUB, they ask whether I know Nabil. Is he still teaching? And then begin to recount stories of his classes, of their time with Nabil. In Boulder, Colorado, I was there shortly. I met a woman, the wife of a professor, who had done her junior year at AUB, and yes, she had taken a course with Nabil, who she remembered fondly. Everyone who I've ever met who took a class with Nabil, and there are many in here who I first met 30 years ago. We all look a little better, but it's been a long time. In fact, 50 years of many. Remember him as caring and a thoughtful professor, well-versed, well-connected, and someone who was passionate about his subject. What made Nabil special as a professor, I recall this from my student days, and decades later, I hear it now from our students, who repeat the same sentiments. It was that Nabil could convey his point, his argument, through stories, rich stories full of details and color, all of which were relatable. Nabil is a great storyteller. When we became colleagues, he would often come by my office in those early days. We were only 3 media faculty at the time, and we would talk about the program, about what courses were working, which needed some tweaking, and about our students. He cared deeply about students, all students, and he went out of his way to help students. And then he would say he had to go, that Huda would be waiting for him for dinner. And before he got up to leave, there was a slight pause. We both understood the pause. I turned, opened my drawer, and took out a bowl of chocolate. Nabil would say, I shouldn't grab one before I could change my mind, and then he was gone. I want to say, the chocolate was our dirty little secret. Now everybody knows, and you don't come by anymore. So I want to say just a few words about Nabil's memoirs, or medley as he calls it. Growing up in the diaspora, I would connect with friends and family from Palestine and Lebanon. I always heard stories of AUB, particularly stories of its politically charged days in the 60s and early 70s, of student activities and activism, of campus life, of the Green Oval, West Hall, of the glory days of AUB and of Beirut. It was a very different Lebanon and AUB that I first experienced in 1993. Those stories, my inherited memories, were brought back in vivid detail in Nabil's book. I loved reading the chapters of his early years, how he came to be at AUB, about his experiences on campus as both a student and later as a young faculty member, and of the events that really made AUB, which Nabil not only witnessed, but played an active part in many of those developments. I read most of the book in one night. It was a long night. Fortunately, I didn't teach the next day. I also loved reading all the messages Nabil received immediately after he sent an email to the AUB faculty list announcing his imminent retirement. The responses were all so touching, so personal, and so numerous. That was a different night's reading. If you will allow, I would like to just end by reading my response to that email from Nabil, which I think more succinctly expresses what I've been trying to say here. Dear Nabil, maybe it's because we didn't get to celebrate retirement, because he retired in the middle of COVID, and your decades of untiring service to AUB, that it's still difficult to believe you're retiring. The other day, as you were packing up the rest of your office, it suddenly became real. But it's no less difficult to imagine the Media Studies program without its instigator, its architect, its founder. On a personal note, I want to thank you for warmly welcoming me to the program, first as an international MA student almost 30 years ago, and then as a faculty member and colleague close to 10 years ago, a little longer now. You have always been generous with your time, your ideas, your enthusiastic support, and your friendship, which helped make both moves to Lebanon and AUB easier. I look forward to continuing our conversations and hearing your many stories of AUB, Lebanon, and beyond. Enjoy retirement, Nabil. You have more than earned it, and please remember, I will always keep chocolate in my drawer just in case you come by.
Okay, so I'm Imad Baalbaky. I think most of you know me as a Senior Vice President for Advancement and Business Development. But I'm also, a humble professor of marketing. And one of the courses that I like to teach most is consumer behavior. And one of the theories in consumer behavior is theory of experiential learning, whereby people learn through experience, through observation, through observing others, through the experiences of others too. Personally, I was not a student in the traditional sense of the word of Dr. Nabil Dajani. I was here, of course, as a student when he was a faculty member, definitely, and I had friends and family members who took courses with him, but I did not take a course with him. Yet I learned from him. And I learned from him through our encounters later in life. And one of the things I learned from him is that whenever one sees an anomaly, one should stop at it, one should attend to it, address it, try to correct it with facts, and if not, at least voice your opinion and move on. As an attestation that I did learn from Dr. Dajani, this flyer has an error. My name is spelled incorrectly there. It is spelled with a Y. It should be with an I. So thank you, Dr. Nabil, for teaching me that, and I'm really grateful for it. President Khuri and the other speakers have talked about and will continue to talk about Dr. Dajani's long years of experience and of service to AUB, about his teaching, his research, his service to the university, years in which he made so many contributions and had a lot of impact. While some might disagree and even challenge some of Dr. Nabil Dajani's research approach, perhaps his research findings, his stands, his opinions, or his administrative style, which is actually a sign of academic impact and rigor and an decisive administrative decisions. There's no doubt there is unanimity about Dr. Nabil's passion to everything he does and every matter he approaches, whether it's in his teaching, his research, his administration, but mostly in his love and dedication to AUB and to all that AUB stand for. I believe that this is a fact that no two can disagree upon. Dr. Dajani's service doesn't stop at the gates of this beautiful campus. His commitment to AUB extended globally when in 2007 he was elected and became a founding member actually, of the back then the newly established Worldwide Alumni Association of the American University of Beirut, better known as AUB. And after a few years, he assumed the presidency of YIUB from 2011 to 2013. As president of YIUB, Nabil brought his passion and dedication for the university's mission of education and community service to tens of thousands of alumni dispersed all around the world. In his inaugural address back then, Dr. Dajani said, "My commitment to the university and its mission is the primary reason that I sought the presidency of YIUB." And he did prove that in every step of the way. During his tenure at YIUB, he worked tirelessly to strengthen the connections between AUB and its alumni body, to build bridges between Beirut and the global community of alumni, and to establish even new alumni chapters in Maldives and in Germany at that time, which is further proving that AUB spirit knows really no borders. Yet Dr. Nabil's global outreach at YIUB did not distract him from working on attempting to resolve a decade-long drift between of the AUB Alumni Association of Lebanon, better known as AAA, from its alma mater. Nabil had a special connection with AAA, the very first alumni body established in 1910 that brought together graduates of this great institution. And I believe it's the first alumni association in the entire region. His relationship with AAA goes back to 1954, when he was in his second year as an undergraduate student. He worked as a night shift receptionist at AAA in its original premises where the School of Nursing, where the Hariri School of Nursing now stand. His work there opened Nabil's eyes to the critical role that alumni play in the development and sustainability of their alma mater, and as, quoting him, one of the university's four pillars is students, its faculty, its staff, and its alumni. After graduation from AUB and before leaving to the US to pursue his doctoral studies, Nabil actually worked at the Office of University Relations at that time, in alumni relations and later on in development. Roles that I was entrusted with when I was asked to do that about 24 years ago. Needless to say, and knowing Nabil's personality, passion, and conviction, his tenure at AAA as a board member and as a president was quite eventful, and for sure wasn't without controversy. I will leave it to you to go through some of the more intriguing pages of his book before I forget, in which he talks about his work at the alumni office at AUB at the time, his engagement later with AAA board, and then his tenure at YIUB. About a year ago, exactly a year ago, in April 2024, Nabil shared with me a sneak peek of these chapters in an email. And I'd like to read for you the cover note that he sent in that email. "Dear Imad, I visited the campus yesterday after a long time, and I'm truly impressed by the developments that took place since I retired. This is just to tell you that Fadlo made an excellent choice by selecting you as his senior officer. Reflecting on the past, I note that this year marks my 72nd year as a member of the AUB community, as a student, staff, active faculty, and emeritus member. During this period, I was fortunate to meet wonderful people like yourself. You may wish to read and comment on the attached Arabic translated chapters of my AUB alumni memoirs that cover a period you observed. Best wishes, Nabil." Of course, I did not comment on any of that because I wanted to be as reported by Nabil himself. Dr. Nabil Dajani is a mentor for many. He's a leader with purpose and passion. And above all, he's a true son of AUB. I was delighted to have had the chance to work with his son Tariq and the family to establish the Nabil and Huda Dajani Endowed Scholarship at AUB some years ago, honoring the life and legacy of Nabil in a manner that mattered to him most, which is impacting student lives and offering the priceless gift of education to those who deserve it. The Endowed Scholarship links Nabil's name to that of his life partner, and definitely his better half, Huda. Thank you, Huda, for being there. With that of their and our beloved AUB in perpetuity. I'm proud to have had a role to play in that. Dr. Dajani, you title your book, "Before I Forget." I can assure you that your university will never forget you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maysaa Kobrosly, and I'm the admin officer in SOAM department. I have the honor to stand here today to pay tribute to someone who means so much to me, Dr. Nabil Dajani. Since the very first day I started in SOAM department, Dr. Dajani has been there for me. He has not only been a mentor, but a father figure to me. Over the years, he has offered guidance, support, and encouragement, making sure I never felt alone or lost, no matter what challenges came my way. There's something else I've come to realize too. For as long as I've been here, I couldn't start my day without seeing him. Whether it was a quick greeting in the morning or a moment of shared laughter before we start our work. Dr. Dajani has been a constant part of my daily routine. His presence has been a reassuring start to each day, a reminder that no matter what happens, we are in this together. I really miss those days. We shared so many moments of growth, achievement, and even struggles, and through it all, Dr. Dajani was there with steady guidance and comforting hand. Today, as we honor you, we want you to know that no matter where the life takes us, the love, respect, and admiration we have for you will never fade. Dr. Dajani, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Thank you for everything you have done, for the laughs, and for being the amazing person you are. And no matter where life takes us, we'll always look back on our time with you with a smile on our face and gratitude in our hearts. We love you, and we are so lucky to have you in our lives.
I got so jealous of the great speakers before me talking about Nabil, and I feel a little bit shortcut because I have to talk about the book instead of Nabil. But I do have a couple of words about Nabil as a human being, as a friend, before I start with the book. And what I've written here, I just want to read it to convey the message. It dawned on me when I thought about it that the word Nabil in English must have been derived from the word Nubl in Arabic. Like so many words in English, sugar, sikkar, laymoon, lemon, zero, sufr, algebra, etc. The word Nabil in English must have been derived from the word Nubl. As flatly as this may sound, it must have occurred to me a long time ago, residing in my memory, and it is not it's not only on the spur of the moment, for on Monday of August 24, 2020, at 9:03 in the morning, a message went out from Nabil's favorite tool of written communication, the computer, to everyone else, saying that after 50 years of continuous service as a faculty member, Nabil was retiring. In fact, 68 years, if you add to it his time as a student and as a member of the administration, 68 years a member of the AUB community in its various shapes and forms and locations. Following the farewell message, a flood of emails began to journey back to Nabil's computer, carrying to him good wishes and best regards. The first was only 3 seconds after 9:03, that is at 9:06. And by noontime at 12 o'clock, the count was 33 messages in return. I forgot about this before I had the chance to receive a copy of Nabil's book with its enigmatic title, Before I Forget. Checking the last pages, I found I was one of those 33 persons who sent a message of goodwill to Nabil. It was at 10:22, and it said, "Good luck. I will be following your footsteps soon. Wherever you are, you will remain Nabil, N, capital N-A, capital A, B, instead of, and 4 E's, and then L at the end, with the letter I converted into the letter E." And this time, this person, and the quality of his nobility and what he believes in and what he stands for must have resided in my memory for a long time. Nabil, a noble man, a straightforward man, like an arrow, a man of principle, right or wrong. When I received an invitation to talk on this occasion, I told Sari Hanafi that I need a copy of the book. Sari answered that the book is all on the computer. I responded immediately, "No, I want a paper copy," and Sari was kind enough to oblige and send me a paper copy. As soon as I received the paper copy, I opened the book and started to read. In the preface, Nabil tells the reader that what he has in the book is more of a medley than a memoir. My antennas shut up. I had an idea of what a medley is, but I thought I would check Webster. I did that, and this is what I found. It is an assortment, a miscellaneous, a mixed bag, potpourri, Salma Gundi, I never heard of this word before, Salma Gundi, a diverse assortment or a mixture, especially hodgepodge. I like the last word, hodgepodge. This is what Nabil's book is about, hodgepodge. When we look in the table of contents to see what this medley or hodgepodge include, we find 9 chapters in a total of 127 pages, plus a collection of 12 appendices, spread over a total of 81 pages of reproduced emails. In fact, we find that the computer had dislodged more pages of email texts of previous correspondence between Nabil and other people than it has produced language text. This is especially heavy in the chapters that have to do with alumni affairs, chapter 6 and 7. Thinking of the title of the book, Before I Forgot, I thought maybe there is no need to remember. How can anyone forget what these 2 chapters have, and their contents are engraved and reproduced in the form of emails, one after email, page after page. As an example, in chapter 6, that has the title, Getting Tangled with Alumni Affairs, the total number of pages is 15. Out of these, 8 are reproduction of email texts. Then in addition to this, there is an appendix to this chapter with 27 email texts more. In the following chapter, number 7, that has the title, Taking Up Alumni Leadership, the count of email is even more. 19 out of 32 pages are pages of email texts. Then in the appendix, we find 43 more pages of emails, giving a total of 97 pages of email texts in these two chapters, versus 20 pages of language or verbal, a proportion of 5 pages of email pages to each 1 page of verbal in these two chapters. I thought this was very much off balance. And what is the story about it anyhow? What is the gist of all this? A total of about 120 pages of emails in these two chapters, 6 and 7, and an appendix attached to them in almost half or a little more than half of the total number of pages in the book. And this is all electronic text on emails that might as well have been deposited in the university archives or simply filed somewhere else. I thought I would give this matter more attention and started reading through these emails one after the other, and realized that through all these large volume of email exchange and exchange of emails, one issue dominates, one issue, that of overlapping boundaries. On one side, the Alumni Association as an independent and distinct body with its own rules and president, who is Nabil, and the AUB itself as a parent and progenitor represented by its special office, the Alumni Relations Office, and more distressingly by its president, particularly the last one before the present magnanimous president. Other than entanglement with alumni affairs, Nabil does expand his frontiers to other matters in the last two chapters. Number 8, which he gives it the title, The Shift to Academia, in a total of 8 pages, including pictures of 3 AUB presidents, and then the last chapter, number 9, with the title, Facing Academic Schemes. In the introduction to chapter 8, I quote Nabil saying, "The first part of my memoirs rendered events I faced and when necessary were documented by electronic copies of exchanges. Unfortunately, the internet was not launched in AUB and Lebanon during the early part of my academic experience." This is Nabil speaking. Part of my renderings in the second part, thus, are based on personal reflections as well as on representation of events as I recall them. They are regrettably structured on a failing memory, end of quote. Hail to your memory, Nabil, and to your soul, for what you have in this chapter number 8, and also the one after chapter 8, the last one in the book, number 9, vindicates the title you gave to your book, Before I Forget. As these two chapters do depend and extract from your memory what you record and consider important, they do justice to the title of your book. The same applies to the first 5 chapters that are the early part in your book, to which I deferred reference to them so far on purpose. What chapter 8 conveys is a story of a young scholar finally finding his true color. This is amply demonstrated by Nabil's revived contacts with other scholars in his field of specialization, particularly his old advisor and mentor in the United States and the University of Iowa, and with Fulbright and other agencies that ultimately led to the a mass media program in the university. The story is cut short in this chapter with the outbreak of civil war in 1975. To be resumed in the last chapter in the book with the guiding title, quote, Facing Academic Schemes. This chapter opens with the following statement. My first 5 years of teaching as a member of the defunct mass communication program in 1970-75 were as a great learning experience. These years depict the period when my naivete and unsophistication as a faculty member were tried. Moving from a relaxed administrative position, I found myself trapped in the schemes, in the covert schemes of academia. The first scheme I encountered was within my own program, end of quotation. The outbreak of the war in 1975 was a major shake-up, not only for Nabil and the university, but for the country as a whole. American professors left the country, including its top administrators. The university was run by a president who resided in the United States and a deputy president on site. There was shelling and insecurity, and students in the east part of Beirut could not cross over to Ras Beirut, and off-campus program was started for them, not a branch in East Beirut. Nabil narrates events in those difficult times in the last chapter. He found himself leaving the country with his wife and family to Europe, and then to the Gulf, and then returned to face what he calls academic schemes. The chapter has pictures of prominent figures in the life of the university, starting with Dean Salim, President Kerr, Deputy President Salti, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Herter, President Haddad, President Waterbury, President Dorman, and last but not least, President Khuri. It also has a beautiful picture of Nabil himself carrying the university's old mace as Chief Marshal of AUB. This is the last chapter in the book, chapter 9, followed by many pages, almost half the book, of email appendices. As I mentioned earlier, the story, as I told it, does not start from the beginning. It started with Nabil's entanglement in the alumni affairs in chapter 7. But there are 6 other chapters before number 7 that I did not even touch. These include Nabil's early childhood in Palestine, the family's forced exodus to Lebanon, Nabil's student life at AUB, his involvement with administration, passé, as he calls it, his graduate study in the United States, and his return to Beirut, and finally his meeting with his lady, and their marriage, and their beautiful children and grandchildren. All of this is not more than 30 pages. I wish these were 300 pages instead. I have to stop talking at this point to avoid the risk of getting too emotional in wishing Nabil, the noble, remember, and his family the best of everything that a good friend wishes for. And thank you. نحط العوينات تكرم ها نحط العوينات. Thank you all. It is heartwarming to be surrounded by friends, colleagues, and guests in this special event. I'm profoundly touched and immensely grateful to Sari and the American University of Beirut for organizing this gathering. Reflecting on some 50 years as a professor at AUB, I'm filled with a sense of gratitude and pride. The journey has been nothing short of extraordinary, marked by countless moments of joy, challenges, and growth. My memoirs, which we are here to discuss today, capture the essence of my experiences and the profound impact this university has had on my life. Thank you all for being here. Your support and friendship have been invaluable to me throughout my career, and I'm deeply grateful for each and every one of you. In introducing my memoirs, I'm reminded that our past is not just a series of events, but a profound journey that shapes our very essence. Reflecting on my life, I realized that my subconscious mind significantly influenced the observations in the memoirs. The deep-seated beliefs and attitudes formed from my past experiences has shaped how I perceive and describe various situations in my life. A factor that influenced the somewhat rigid structure of my memoirs, which my friend Munir mentioned, was my desire to document the statements I make. Document the statements I make about AUB situations and significant university individuals I encountered during my career. I aim for memoirs to serve as a dependent record of AUB events for future researchers. This intention required me to include numerous verbatim exchanges related to AUB affairs. While some may find this inclusion of these exchanges tedious, I believe it is necessary to substantiate my statements, particularly if they are challenged. These exchanges not only support my claims, but also provide context for the events and encounters I describe. However, I tried to limit these in the body of the memoirs and included the bulk in the appendices. The Arabic version of the memoirs limited the number of appendices. I should note that the title of the Arabic memoirs was changed, as the original قبل أن أنسى was the title of a book by Anis Fraiha. Thus, the main Arabic title became قبل أن تبهت الذاكرة. I should also note that I omitted many encounters I wish to mention, fearing they might be contested due to possible conflict and with prevailing public image. In particular, I wanted to include interactions with two highly reputed and recognized professors during my tenure as editor of the AUB Faculty Bulletin. One professor mailed a news item about a lecture he developed, firmly requesting, "Do not change a word before consulting with me." The other professor personally delivered a news item about his election to head an international organization, telling me to edit it as I see fit. I chose not to include these encounters because I could not document them, and their authenticity might be questioned. Initially, I wanted to include numerous powerful encounters to make my memoirs more compelling. Although some were part of my original draft, I decided to remove them based on feedback from several early readers, including my son and daughter. I'm uncertain if omitting these was the right decision, and I'm considering depositing the edited encounters in a confidential section at the Jaffet Library Archives. Growing up as a Palestinian child and teenager was demanding and rough. I briefly touched on how a sudden change in my family living conditions and financial status affected my choice of friends, socio-political loyalties, and even my hangouts. Influenced by my early sociological training, my memoirs draw an analogy between the changes in the structure of the AUB main gate entry and college hall architecture with the word socio-political changes. Entering AUB through the main gate used to be straightforward, with a ramp allowing access to all, including the plain and handicapped, even horse carts. This ramp was replaced by stairs, complicating the entrance for the plain and handicapped and making it unattainable for horse cars or cars. Likewise, I note that the entrance to College Hall was initially through east-west doors, which were later obstructed and replaced by a south-north path. The journey to entering AUB through the main gate and College Hall reflects to me global cultural and socio-economic changes. It suggests a shift from an east-west direction to a south-north route. Today, world trends have become more complex, with cultural crosswords now following a south-north trajectory, primarily influenced by wealth. Admission to AUB has become more intricate and is generally more accessible to those who are financially well off. Originally, admission to AUB, like the global movement between the East and West, was relatively straightforward and uncomplicated. The economic background of the students was not a minor factor in admission. Similarly, I note that since Lebanon was within the French sphere of influence, teaching in French was predominant. AUB had to introduce admission incentives to attract Lebanese students and draw students from neighboring British-dominated countries like Palestine and Iraq. I briefly reflect on AUB's admission from governance by religious missionaries to secular leadership at the end of the Second World War. I also touch on the shift in AUB from dominant faculty governance to administrative takeover that began during the Stephen Penrose period and culminated with the Norman Burns, Farid Hanniya, Wrangel period. I wish I could have elaborated on Malcolm Kerr's liberalization period and my Senate experience during this tenure as evidence of the liberal mood at that time. This mood encouraged a cautious person like myself to become visible and vocal. I would have liked to present documented examples of how Kerr's liberal attitude encouraged young faculty members to face the inner circle of deans and administrators. During his period, the faculty were able to make landmark changes in AUB's governance by introducing two new significant Senate standing committees. The Senate Steering Committee that determined the Senate meeting agendas, which were previously set by the President, and the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs that gave official recognition to faculty governance rights and practices which were opposed by several senior officials. These two new committees were able to introduce important changes in academic rules and faculty benefits. I hope that AUB scholars will delve into the different AUB archives to bring this out to the public, to the general public. My alumni experience reflects on the dormant presidential period. It also highlights an inner circle of administrative oligarchy power and how Title IX can be used for abuse. The memoir presents my impressions of the presidents who served during my tenure. Some may disagree with these impressions, and I invite them to present theirs. The concluding part of my memoirs voices a concern for the academic stature and influence of the main Beirut campus with the introduction of arts campuses, as was the case with the defunct off-campus program, OCP, in West Beirut. In closing, my memoirs reflect the intricate tapestry of experiences, beliefs, and observations that have shaped my life, from the challenges of my youth as a Palestinian child to the transformative years at AUB. I hope my reflections on the evolution of AUB governance and personal anecdote about the university leadership, as well as the somewhat tedious personal email exchanges, will inspire readers to probe deeper into the history and role of this valued institution. My journey, intertwined with that of AUB, is a narrative of change, challenge, and hope. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my memoirs.
Well, I would like to invite the audience, if you have any few words you would like to say. From faculty, from students, I'm so glad, from family. Any volunteer? Okay, in that case, I would like to invite you all to a small reception outside, and maybe you share your anecdotes and anything with Nabil there. So, thank you so much for coming. Yeah. So.